Hello to everyone who's joined us, and welcome to Improving Access for All, a journey through the world of adaptive mountain biking. We're really excited to host this session as the kickoff to our 4-part Move United Adaptive Mountain Biking webinar series, and are appreciative of our 2 panelists joining us here who we'll introduce in just a moment. Before we do get started, I'll go over a few housekeeping items. All participants will be on mute to minimize distractions. If you would like to ask a question, please do click the Q&A button on the bottom of your screen. This session will be a continuous Q&A to answer the questions of our audience members, so please submit your questions as they come to mind. We then encourage you to use the chat more so to introduce yourselves. We will be recording this webinar for others to tune into at a later time or for you to review. We do strongly encourage you to share it with your community members, your friends back home, anybody who you think would be interested. And then finally, this session has been pre-approved for NCTRC continuing education credits. If you requested your CEU, certificates will be circulated in the 2 weeks following the session to those who attended the session in full. So thank you again for joining us, and we'll go ahead and get started. Real quick, we'd just like to get a sense of who is joining us here today. So in a minute, you'll see a poll pop up on your screen. And if you could complete that to let us know who's here, that would be great. And Julianne, who's here helping us today, if you would actually mind launching that poll, that would be awesome.
Oh, it says I can't vote. No fair.
You can verbally voice your selection, Pete.
You all know I'm an athlete and now an adaptive sports provider.
Wonderful. All right, Julianne, just a couple more seconds, I would say, and then we can go ahead and share those results.
This is cool.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, Tim McGo's in the room.
Yeah, we got Telluride on. Awesome.
Look out.
So looks
like out there.
We've got a good mix here. So a lot of adaptive sport providers, and then VA staff, and a pretty even distribution between general sport provider, parks and rec, and athletes. So really cool to see. Thank you all for being here. For anybody who's unfamiliar with the Move United membership network, the Move United membership network is made up of 164 organizations providing adaptive sports opportunities across 43 states to individuals of all ages and all abilities. And if you're interested in finding a member organization local to your area, you can visit the moveunitedsport.org website or just connect with us directly and we can help you find your local member organization. All right, and with all of that being said, we'll now turn it over to our wonderful panelists here with us today. So I'm joined by 2 very accomplished and experienced mountain bikers who have extensive experience in the industry. And would love to start out with each of you guys sharing just a little bit about your background, who you are, and how you became involved in the industry. So yeah, whoever would like to get started, feel free.
Yep, Jake, you opened your mouth first.
My name is Jake O'Connor. I'm owner of ReActive Adaptations out in Crested Butte, Colorado. Been building hand cycles and other adaptive equipment for about 10 years now. I've been in a wheelchair for about 19 years now, coming up August. What is today? I guess it's been 19 years, August 3rd. So I'm a T11-12 paraplegic complete. And yeah, what else would you like to hear?
No, that sounds great, Jake. And just so you know, I'll stay off video just to let you guys run the show. But Pete, if you'd like to make an introduction, that would be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Pete Way. Didn't see who all's out there, so some of you should know me. I am a right above the knee amputee. So got that bad boy. And I was in the Army for 24 years, Army and Army Reserve. Got injured in Afghanistan back in 2003 and ultimately lost my leg in 2015 from those injuries. So I got into adaptive sports at that point, and the mountain bike background started. I started mountain biking, bought my first bike in 1986. I did that for a long time. And so adaptive mountain biking, once I lost my leg, this was my goal to get back into it. So I ride all sorts of things, 2 and 3 wheel, and I have started a program here in Augusta, Georgia for the community, particularly veterans, to provide adaptive sports, including mountain biking.
Awesome. Thanks, Pete. Thank you both for being here. We'll start off with this question. We know that everybody has their own reason for loving the sports they do. And I would love if each of you could share kind of a favorite experience or a reason why you're drawn to the adaptive sports, the adaptive mountain biking industry specifically.
I'll start it off, I guess, Pete.
Okay.
I basically fell in love with the mountain biking industry because I think it's about the only truly independent sport out there for someone in a wheelchair. I do Nordic skiing. I guess Nordic skiing is pretty independent too, but I do a lot of alpine skiing and stuff like that. And that still requires chairlifts and a lot of help. And I get stuck in tree wells and I need people to bail me out and all that good stuff. But when it came to off-road hand cycling, it's the one sport that I found that just really lets me be completely 100% independent. I don't need anybody out there helping me. I don't want anybody out there helping me. And if you knew me, you'd probably understand my point of view. And but that's just that's what I'm into. I'm into being independent. And ever since I've gotten hurt, everybody wants to help, and that's great. But I'm more of an independent guy, and this has allowed me to access the backcountry. Let me go fishing on my own. Let me go do the things that I used to do on my own. I'm an ex-rock climber and ex-backcountry, backpacker and stuff like that. And that's the only thing I wanted to keep doing. And this sport's allowed me to do that.
Well said. Thank you, Jake. Pete, if you'd like to share.
Yeah, my turn. So, part of my draw to adaptive sports and adaptive mountain biking in particular was that background of having been mountain biking since the 80s. Yes, I'm old, so that's that comes with it, I guess. But I was after I lost my leg, I got on a road hand cycle through the Warrior Transition Unit. And got to use that and ride the roads and realized I could ride again, but it didn't have the same thing I wanted. I wanted the woods, the fun stuff, roots, rocks, drops, bumps, everything. Went on a trip out to Utah to take my son out there, take my family out there to see Utah because my son had never been, and we ended up stopping at the National Ability Center and. They were talking, my son was going to go do some mountain biking up on Deer Valley, and I wasn't. And they wanted to know why. And we talked about equipment, and they ended up actually putting me on one of Jake's designs, the bomber. And so the next day, they had me lift served up at the top of Deer Valley, and almost right away, just hitting these gnarly trails. Frankly, there's things I can ride on a 3-wheel hand cycle that I wouldn't touch on 2 wheels. So it just fit. It was just a fantastic fit, and the feeling to get back back on a mountain bike, to get back on the mountain and in the woods, and getting to enjoy that was everything. And like Jake, I see it's a sense of independence as well, because with good equipment like these hand cycles, you really can get out there on your own. And so I just fell in love with it, and I have since then, I've gotten where I'm back on 2 wheels as well, and that's been really good. I still just love riding the hand cycle and racing it as well. So and I actually ended up buying. What did I get, Jake? My hammerhead was number 2. You built one for you. I ended up getting a full suspension hammerhead from Jake, and just thrashed that thing all over the place. And it's just been a game changer for me.
Awesome. Thanks, Pete. I think you guys both bring some incredible passion to the industry, and excited to discuss some more components as we dive into these questions here. Another question that we've had come up is, within the mountain biking space, we recognize that there's often barriers to adaptive athletes getting outdoors on mountain bikes. And I'm wondering if you guys could each speak to some of the barriers you've experienced in your journey and how you were able to overcome them.
Go for it, Pete.
Yeah, man, I'll jump in. So, my first barrier was, lack of knowledge, I guess. I didn't have anybody around my amputation happened at Fort Gordon in Augusta, and the WTU was shutting down around that time or starting the process. And what I ran into was just a lack of knowledge, both of the sport and the equipment. So, I really didn't have anybody telling me that, hey, look at this, you can get on, a well-built hand cycle and you can go back to mountain biking. So that was really a big barrier, to get the word out with, with webinars like this, where more providers, service providers, and athletes can learn that these things exist. So equipment has just been a big one. The same thing went for getting back on a two-wheel bike. I was at a race, an event with Mike Schultz, and he asked me why I was riding a hand cycle since I still had one good leg. And I told him that I couldn't get a prosthetic that really worked for me on the mountain bike. So he pulled out one of his and hooked me up to it. And 10 minutes later, I was riding down the same gnarly trails I had just finished running on a hand cycle. So that really opened up a whole nother branch of adaptive mountain biking for me. But it's really hard to get, just a central point for, adaptive mountain biking. There's a lot of Facebook groups. There's just not one really solid central place to go for information on the sport, the equipment, places to ride. That's big because we have to have trails essentially cut to a certain width. I've done some damage on some trails where they're not wide enough and my two front wheels are out in the weeds. It's not a fun way to ride, and it does do some damage to the sides of the trail. So, finding places we can ride that actually will accommodate the hand cycle also can be difficult.
Yeah, absolutely, Pete. And I think, you bring up a great point that right now there's a lot of kind of smaller groups across the country, and this is a really neat opportunity to bring everybody together to talk about these things and also network and connect with folks so that we can kind of make a more collaborative effort to advance the industry. So thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll turn it over to you, Jake.
Yeah, I parallel some of Pete's thoughts there. Trail accessibility sucks, but it's coming a long way. And I know my local trail builders are taking my information, and they know me really well, and they're always asking me what they can do. And I'm getting probably a call every 1 week, every 2 weeks from some trail building association asking me my opinion and my trail width and how quick my hand cycles turn on a radius and all this stuff. And I've actually started a website called adaptivetrails.com that we're trying to get it going. We have a little lack of funding and a little lack of time, but it's basically like Mountain Bike Project, where you can rate trails and describe the trails that you ride. So if Pete were to go out to those trails, he'd know which trails he could do and which trails he couldn't. So that's something that we're actually working on, and is probably going to be a later discussion in one of the other webinars. But as far as other obstacles, as a manufacturer, I come across obstacles every day. So when I started mountain biking, we only had one type of off-road hand cycle out there made by a guy named Mike Augsburger. It's called the One-Off. It's a great bike. I own 2 of them, broke 2 of them. And I damaged everything you could on those bikes. And so I kind of took it upon myself to try and build a better bike, and then build other bikes that other type of injuries could use. So the One-Off was a fantastic bike, but really you had to be a fairly able paraplegic or amputee in order to use it. And so quadriplegics and other higher level injuries, other higher thoracic injuries, couldn't ride the One-Off very effectively. And so I've taken a lot of time to try and come up with different products that everybody can ride. And so that's been a huge obstacle because, as everybody knows, every injury is different. Pete's injury is different than another amputee's injury. Paraplegics are all sort of similar, but quadriplegics, they're all over the place as far as what they can do on a bike. So it takes a lot of time to develop this equipment, and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to figure out what's going to work for everybody. That's my major obstacle. That and COVID shutting everything down and basically evaporating all my bike parts and all my bike tubing. So, but whatever.
Yeah, to add to what you said too, Jake, one of the best things that happened here, we have a IMBA, I don't remember what rating we got for it for our local trail system called Forks Area Trails, or FATS, and they were not very hand cycle friendly, and I got out there and got myself stuck in lots of stuff. Don't have my leg when I ride, so I really am, can't really go anywhere unless the bike goes. And I met with the president of our Off-Road Bike Association chapter here, and he saw my hand cycle, and we had a long discussion about trail needs. And as they started trail work parties after that meeting, they pretty much enlarged all the trails. So I've got 35 miles, and most of the trails have between 36 and like 48 inches of width available. So way more hand cycle friendly.
Yeah, when I started building these bikes, 10 years ago, there was only the one-off out there, and then there was maybe Lasher had just started building his hand cycles, and then maybe Sporton had just started building his hand cycles for 1 or 2 years. So there weren't many options, and there weren't many of these out there. But now, between all the manufacturers cranking these things out, we've got a huge presence out there. So now something needs to be done with the trails. And I think there's a weird perception out there that we want trails that are 10 feet wide and perfectly flat with no obstacles. And that's actually quite the opposite. I think Pete would agree. We want the same stuff that the able-bodied mountain bikers want, but we just need a little bit of help here and there with perhaps some of the off-camber stuff and maybe some of the obstacles. There is a limit to what we can do. But I'll tell you this, I can do stuff on my off-road hand cycle that able-bodied people can't do on theirs. Yep. So there's this trade-off. But I think the need is there. And, I appreciate Pete going to his local IMBA representatives and showing them the hand cycles, because that's what really changes things. They look at these things and go, oh, wow, we had no idea this even existed. And once they see it, they're like, well, then we're going to take this. We're going to take this in mind and start making our trails a little bit differently now. And that's what everybody needs to start doing.
So to piggyback off of this discussion, we've had a question come in that is, what is something about mountain biking with a disability that you've had to learn the hard way and wish you hadn't?
It's a good question. I know I can probably start with that. One of the things that I learned the hard way, I think, was when to ditch the bike and when to stay on the bike. I got a lot of great crash pictures. That's kind of one of the things I like to do, is just before I get up, take a picture of the crash. But I did a lot of crashing in that, figuring those things out. I didn't really have anybody teaching me any particular best practice. So, I've rolled these things end over end. I've rolled them sideways. I have crashed into trees at high speed. Whole bunch of things where, just some instruction would have saved me a lot of pain. I've broken my hands. I've broken my back. A lot of injuries in doing this. So that's really a big deal. Kind of getting someone you can learn from. It's not as automatic as you think. These things handle really differently than a bike, and there's a lot of nuances to using them. And so it's a big deal to get some kind of instruction on the ins and outs of the equipment and limits, things you might not want to try.
Let's just pre-qualify that statement, though. Pete is crazy. Like to go really fast and get lots of air. So
yeah, I broke one of your bombers. I wrapped it around a tree coming off of a wall there at the canyon.
Yeah, I repaired it.
Yep, I thought so. And that was not the first. The other stuff was repairable on site. But
why I'm going bald is because of Pete.
I love it.
No, I'm in the same boat as Pete. I've been riding off-road hand cycles for like 17 years now, including those older one-offs, and I've done about everything wrong that you could do on an off-road hand cycle. So yeah, even this weekend we had 4 hand cyclists all with my bikes come up from the Denver area, 3 of which were women who shred. And I took them on one of the hardest trails in the valley, and I was the one that crashed big and did a corkscrew through the air, landed on the bike, and the one girl came up upon me with the rubber, and I had my rubber side up instead of down, and I was like, well, this is a great opportunity for you to see how you actually get out of this bike, roll it over, flip it around, and get back on, because that's what happens. And a lot of people think that they'll never have to do it or they can't do it. And it's like, well, you're going to have to learn, because if you're going to ride these things independently and on your own, this is what you do. So, you know, I struggled for a little while she was watching me. I finally said, screw it, and popped the seatbelt off, popped myself out, threw the bike upside down or right side up, jumped back on and looked at her. And I said, are you ready to go? And she just was like, yeah, let's rock. Okay. Like, wow, I haven't had to do that yet, but now she's got a lot of knowledge in that regard. So she should be good to go, hopefully, in the next crash. So
Good to hear. Fingers crossed for her. Pete, we've had a comment come in that says, do you have any GoPro footage of your crashes? And if yes, where can we find your rides?
Oh man. Yeah, you know, that's a good question. With one of my rides, one of my really favorite rides, it was just really epic. And it was a 2-wheel ride, is in Alaska. And I think you guys have a link to that on YouTube. We shot I was a adaptive, what did they call me? I was an adaptive athlete and adaptive ambassador for High Bike for a couple of years, and they're a German company that it makes exclusively e-bikes. And so I have shot a video with them in Alaska to promote the bike and promote e-bikes and adaptive riding as well. So that's one of the better ones. Yeah, I'll dig through some of them. I used to post them on my Facebook page, and it's been a while since putting anything up on there. So you guys got my Facebook listed on the slides for this, and I will make it a point to go back and find some good stuff and repost it.
And we can share that in our follow-up email as well, Pete. Thank you. Jake, this question is directed at you. How many of your cycles would you say are going to rental programs versus people purchasing them for themselves? And to piggyback off of this, I can also pull up a slide with your different cycles if you'd like to walk through that, just to give people a bit more information as to what you're working on.
no, I'd say maybe a quarter of my bikes are going to adaptive programs or some sort of rental program, probably about 25%.
Yeah, and that's an area that really needs some help. You know, it's really hard to find adaptive rental equipment. You know, I was able, Vail Mountain has a single hand cycle. It's one of Jake's. And you know, the National Ability Center out in Utah has rentals available, loan or rental, but they get those out. But it's really hard. You know, if you don't get your own equipment, it really limits the places you can go and ride. You really have to find you know, an organization that is invested in the equipment, or you know, one of these other, you know, mountains like Vail that does lift serve mountain biking and has an adaptive sports program for vets there. So that's a big limit, is not enough rental out there.
Absolutely. And on the topic of equipment, I know you guys have spoken to there being many different pieces of equipment available to use in the mountain biking space. And so I'm wondering if you can each speak to how you guys have kind of recognized what works best for you and how you use different bikes in different spaces.
You want to run with that one first, Jake, or? I'm good with it. Actually, you talked a little bit already about, you know, starting out on a one-off, and, you know, I have ridden I think I've ridden just about all the ones out there right now, at least in some form. Jake's got a couple I haven't gotten to get on, but you know, in my inventory, my personal inventory, I have the Hammerhead from Jake, and then I have a Lasher full suspension that I had gotten through a grant prior to really discovering how good Jake's stuff really is, and so I ended up that one is now part of my program. Nothing against the bike; it's an awesome bike, but it's not the right fit for me for the riding that I like to do. So there's so many styles and so many ways you can do this, you know, and so getting on the equipment is really key to figure out what's gonna fit for your riding and your comfort. So yeah, you got to be comfortable on these things when you take them out.
Yeah, I agree with Pete. I'm trying to constantly make these better and more able, you know, which is why I have so many models now. I've got like 7 or 8 different types of bikes, most of which I don't even advertise right now because I just haven't had the time. But yeah, I don't know if we should look at this. Okay. So basically, when a customer calls me and says, hey, I want one of your hand cycles, most of the time they know what they want because they've probably gone to a program, hopefully, or a buddy's house to try one. But, you know, if you're a higher level, higher than like a T6 type para, I try and steer people towards the Nuke hand cycle or the Mako, which the Mako is my full suspension version of the Nuke, which I haven't even basically released to the public yet, but we are under production of those. But like the Bomber and the Expedition, and those require a little bit more trunk control and a little bit more able type body in order to ride those bikes. Now that being said, I've got plenty of friends that are high level T injuries and they love the Bomber and they love the Hammerhead. So but yeah, the Stinger is also another bike that I build. It's an off-road foot pedal recumbent. It's very popular, and it does pretty well as well on the trails. So there is that as well. We have a lot of vets that seem to have like perhaps some TBIs or balance issues or amputees, and they love that bike. They'd rather be pedaling still instead of using a hand cycle.
And I'm sorry, I wanted to point out something with Jake. The really cool thing when you can work with someone like Jake and his company, you know, when I knew I wanted the Hammerhead and we were working on getting that built, yeah, I was able to talk to Jake along the way, and he would ask me questions about preferences, and I was able to give him things that I knew I wanted, you know, maybe a little different than the stock model. And it's great to be able to work with the builder to tweak the design to what you need. So really good. And I think you also Jake has I don't know what you call it, Jake. You've got a listing of those of us out there that own one of your bikes, where I actually got a call from somebody in Atlanta that wanted to take a look at my Hammerhead. And so that's a good service, having that where you can, Jake's got it where you can find someone in your area who has one of the bikes that you're looking at and get with them for an opportunity to try it out.
Yeah, thanks, Pete.
On that third photograph there of the Hammerhead, I don't know who that idiot is riding.
I didn't put the other photograph of you in 3 feet in the air either.
Yeah.
So thank you both. Along these same lines, we've had a question come in that says, I'm a T6 with limited core strength. In general, although I've tried the Hammerhead, do you recommend a 3-wheeler or a 4-wheeler?
Well, there aren't too many 4-wheelers out there unless you want just a pure gravity bike that doesn't have any gearing or anything like that. So you're kind of limited. Being a T6, though, I think you'd qualify to pretty much ride any hand cycle. The Bomber, the Hammerhead, the Lasher bikes, any of my competitors' bikes, you know, I don't have any problem promoting my competitors' stuff. They all make really nice stuff. So as a T6, you should be able to ride everything pretty well. Now, will you ride a Bomber or a Hammerhead kneeling type bike as well as Pete or I, because I'm a T1112. I don't know, probably not quite as good because I have full core and I've been riding them for 17 years. But I got tons of folks that are T6s on the Bomber, and they shred. They're awesome. They're great riders.
Yeah, I think anybody who's ridden before, maybe before their injury, can really appreciate things in the design of the Bomber and the Hammerhead. And what I really like is not just the aggressive ride position, but you've got a set of bike handlebars there. You're grabbing on, your steering, your cockpit essentially is very much like like on a two-wheel bike. And so I found that really familiar, and again, something I prefer. Having that sort of setup as opposed to steering with the pedals, steering with the crank. And Jake makes both styles of those. So it really is a matter of figuring out which one's going to let you do the type of riding you want the best. I think everything is adaptable to most levels to get you out on one of these things.
And I just, as on another note, I would always recommend that you go and test it before you buy it. I used to sell two-wheeled bikes for Specialized, and it's like, you need to test it all. You're spending a lot of money. Make sure you get what you want. Go out and ride everything. It's available. Try and find your nearest adaptive program that has all the bikes. I don't care if it's a Lasher bike or one of my other competitors. Ride them all and decide which one works best for you, because you're probably only going to buy one or two of these in your lifetime. They're obviously expensive, so get the one you want.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Jake had just mentioned, a lot of our Move United member organizations are places that you can go to, to try out these different cycles. But along those same lines, I'd love to turn it over to Pete to talk about some of the work you're doing with the nonprofit and what that entails and what you guys are aiming for.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been doing the adaptive side of things since 2014, so about 6 years, and probably I've had the opportunity to, through various nonprofits, including Move United, to go to really cool places and get to ski or ride or both. And so with being able to do that, I've I guess at some point, I'm trying to find the right words. At some point, it didn't feel the same. Going to a camp and having all the support being given to me and the training and everything, just it felt kind of selfish. And so I just was like looking in my own backyard, so to speak, and we don't have a program here, for cycling or much else adaptive. And so that kind of planted the seed. And I went to several other nonprofits in town that were providing some kind of a service to veterans that involved physical activity, and created a kind of a partnership so that we weren't overlapping each other, we weren't taking away any business, but we were supporting each other through more activities and referrals. And so kind of built this thing over the last 2.5 years, and I certainly can't take all the credit for it. I've had some really good co-workers to get this thing going, but we're now providing adaptive mountain bike training, fitting, and rides for our veterans and essentially anybody else in the community that has a need to be on adaptive equipment. I try to let them come out with us and try the equipment out and get a feel for what it's like. And so it's been challenging, but it's also been really rewarding to watch other veterans, other people go through the changes I went through as a result of adaptive sports. And you can see it, when somebody's I see them at the VA, we're in some groups together, things like that. I see these guys, and then I get them out on a bike again, and I see them and see the reaction and see the changes, see them just light up with life again. And that's the new reward, is me getting that instead of receiving it. And, it's tough work, but it is, I felt like it was what I needed to do. So, we're rolling in essentially our second year of this thing. and it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, awesome work. Thank you, Pete.
Yeah, and we're working to become a chapter. We want to be on that map that you showed. We want to put Augusta, Georgia on that map soon. So we're really excited about the opportunities that keep coming to be able to to provide more and more and better services to everybody.
We equally appreciate collaborating with folks like you both. So thank you. We've had another question come in. It says, can you talk a little bit about progressions in instruction? If somebody wants to work towards working on downhill trails that are only accessible by ski lifts, is that a realistic goal for most people, or just a small segment of the population that would have the fitness or skills to achieve that?
You want to jump on that, Jake, or you want me to hit it?
Well, Pete and I had a discussion about this before we started the panel or whatever the webinar, and I'm more of I stay away from the ski lift type stuff. Even though I live in a town that has that and promotes that. There's nothing wrong with it. It's fun as hell. And, the fitness level, you don't really have to have as much of if you're, utilizing a ski lift and whatnot. So that's probably not as big of a problem. And it seems like the resorts I've been to have always had wider trails, like Crested Butte, where I ride, and Winter Park, and Telluride, and all of them seem to actually have a little bit wider track. So starting out at a ski resort type place is probably not the worst idea. In fact, it's probably a good idea because they usually have a patrol there to clean you up if something happens. So, it's like having an insurance policy. So starting at one of those places is probably a good idea. Starting with a program like Telluride Adaptive or the Adaptive Sports Center, I'm just naming the few that are around me, is probably an even better idea because their instructors are trained. They usually have medical expertise in case something happens. They know the mountain and where not to go on the mountain. So that's kind of where I would steer a newer rider towards, instead of going into the backcountry right away and getting marooned or falling off a cliff, which I've done, and ultimately hurting yourself worse. I hope I answered that question.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you, Jake.
Yeah, I had just a little bit to that. I agree with Jake on the, finding the program and really Lift-Serve is, that's probably my number one ride, when I can do downhill only. So I believe in paying the gravity guides. I will ride uphill. Usually at the start of the day, I will find a gnarly hill to climb, and it makes for better juju when I'm doing the downhill stuff. I think you can progress through this stuff pretty rapidly, really. The bike doesn't take a lot of skill to learn how to pedal it. It takes a lot of skill to learn how to actually handle it. They're tippy. There's very easy to roll if you don't know how to shift your weight and get comfortable with the equipment. So you can do it on your own, but I think you'll have enough frustrations that it might steer you away from things. And starting with a program that can get you on the right equipment with the right adaptations and in the right place and make it an enjoyable experience. I look back at stuff I was riding even a couple of years ago, and my riding is so much better now than it was then even. And it lets you continue to take on bigger and bigger things. So I do recommend with hand cycling, because they're tippy, I wear a lot of protective equipment when I'm on there. Really helps with the mistakes, especially learning, at a minimum, elbow pads, and it's a good idea to, depending on what you're doing, to at least have a full face helmet available to you. A lot of times you get right over those bars, and if that thing comes up at you, it's going to do some nasty damage. So, good protective equipment going into it. It will up your confidence level. I laugh when I crash, and that's because I'm like a Ninja Turtle underneath my jersey and shorts. I've got pads everywhere.
I don't really worry about this so much. There's not much to save, but
there you go.
That was my crash. It happens.
Yep.
Thank you both for your insight there. Another topic that is coming up commonly in the Q&A box is what are your opinions or views on the evolution of e-assist and their introduction into the adaptive mountain bike culture and community?
Yeah, I love that one. I have my Hammerhead has an assist on it. I'm in the process of upgrading the assist for something a little stronger than what I started out with. The assist is a game changer, really. It does add weight to the bike, but it essentially makes up for its own weight in the propulsion going uphill. It changes the handling, so you really have to sort of relearn a few things with the center of gravity and how to compensate for that extra weight and where it is. But any electric assist just ups the ante, the confidence level as well, because you can go further in to places you're exploring because you're going to have more energy. You don't wear out as quickly. The other real big advantage to electric assist is I ride with a lot of able-bodied guys on two wheels, and there's just a lot of times you just can't keep up. And with the assist, you get that extra boost, and I'm able to get my speed up so I can stay with with these two-legged people that I ride with. I also have I'm a big fan of e-bikes. Using an e-bike, I was a high bike ambassador for a couple of years. I guess in January I got picked up by Cannondale to be their new adaptive athlete and e-bike ambassador. So I've got a really cool Cannondale e-bike I'm riding now, and it's the same thing. It just changes the entire ride experience because I can keep up with everybody else, and I can pretty much tackle anything that comes in front of me with that assistance. So I'm a big fan of them. You can always turn it off if you feel like you're cheating and want more out of it. You can just turn it off and continue the ride. So they're the point you need it. So, and you'll know it.
Yeah, I could spend days talking about this subject. Well, basically, the long story short is I'm probably installing e-assist on 8 out of every 10 bikes, maybe 9 out of every 10 bikes that I build is getting some sort of motor. And I think it's a game changer too. It's huge. Without it, most of my customers wouldn't be keeping up with their able-bodied friends. They wouldn't be doing hikes with their family and their kids. Half of my customers are mothers or fathers who want to be able to keep up with their teenage kids now that they're grown up. And so this is the only way it's going to happen. And I'm a pretty strong rider. I've been riding a long time. I can ride pretty hard and pretty far without electric assist, but I can't keep up with my wife without e-assist, and she's a strong mountain biker. And I still can't keep up with her on single track, especially descending. She's always going to be faster than me. But when it comes to going uphill or trying to keep up with her on single track, it's the only way it's going to happen is with a motor. And it's just the way it is. Yeah, it's expensive. It's heavier, but that's just life. The technology right now is going absolutely crazy. I can't keep up. There's always something new on the market. I have to go buy it and spend my money on it and see if it works or not. But the technology, like Pete alluded to, there's companies popping up every day that are building something new, something better. The battery technology is growing by leaps and bounds. It seems like every month they come up with a better battery that goes a little bit farther and it's a little bit lighter. So I'm really excited to see what comes in the next couple of years, especially for the hand cycles. It's only getting better and better and better.
Yeah, definitely for single leg amputees. It's the two-wheel version of that. Just getting that assist is the same way. Absolutely a game changer. I have, since getting that and the proper prosthetic, there's not much I won't take on. It's really fantastic.
And a few equipment questions to follow up here. The first one, what applications can you recommend for trailers and/or bike combination for assistance animals, whether they be pedal or electric?
You want to be able to haul a pet?
So from how I'm reading it, that looks like what they're asking.
I I've had that question a few times, and my best answer is like a Burley trailer. You can get a Burley, like for hauling kids and stuff like that. We haul our daughter. I have a 21-month-old now daughter, and we haul her around in a Burley trailer, and which is has two wheels and connects to the rear of the bike. And there's several different versions of it. You can get a 2-person or a 1-person, but I know a lot of people that just throw their pets in those, and they're enclosed, and the pet can't jump out sometimes. So that's the easiest solution, and those are already pre-made and are fairly cheap. So I hope that answers your question.
That's an area where the electric assist is huge, because you're hauling somewhere in the neighborhood of a 50, depending on which model and company. These bikes, these hand cycles can weigh 50 to 75 pounds. Add the trailer in there and a dog, and you're using your arms to push a significant amount of weight. And that electric assist, makes a huge difference on those kind of things. It's will let you get up to speed and let you not so worn out so quickly. So, it's a good combination.
Absolutely. Another equipment question here. Is rear suspension on the Delta hand cycle worth it? And then a comment about tadpole versus Delta style.
Good stuff.
Good questions. I can answer that, but you have to realize that I'm a manufacturer, and my competitors might skin me alive if I talk down on their products. But like I mentioned before, Lasher makes a fantastic Delta style hand cycle. I've been on the trail with multiple Lashers, and they kick ass. They do a really good job on the trail. The major difference between a Delta, and so everybody understands the difference between the two, a Delta hand cycle or a Delta type trike has 1 wheel in the front and 2 in the rear, and a tadpole trike has 2 front wheels and 1 rear wheel traditionally. Most of what I build is a tadpole trike. I firmly believe that it's a little bit safer, more stable type of configuration or geometry than a Delta trike. The other major difference is that most Delta trikes, have front wheel drive only and not rear wheel drive, which most of the time is adequate and just fine. But as soon as you start encountering any hills of a grade greater than 6, 7, 8%, the Delta trikes tend to struggle a little bit, because the weight sort of shifts rearward, takes weight off the front wheel, and then you start spinning out and you lose traction. That's why I prefer to build my hand cycles with the tadpole configuration, because where I ride, we're always doing hills that are greater than 6%. We're closer to 15 to 20% on most of the trails that I ride out in Crested Butte. So the Delta type trikes would not work very well. That's my 2 cents. That's speaking as a manufacturer, and I just like to tell everybody that I have nothing against the Delta trikes. I think they're great riding bikes. I've been out in Moab with them, and they've done some really impressive trails. And so I was really surprised on how well they did. But
yeah, like I said earlier, I've had a Lasher, and I've got the Hammerhead, and the things that I like way better about the tadpole style is you've got your widest part of the cycle is in your view the whole time. So you get in anything tight, especially at speed, you can see where you are. You're not going to fish hook yourself on a tree, which with the Delta style, those wheels are back there behind you. There's nothing between the wheel and the frame blocking contact. And so if the trail's a little bit narrow, sometimes that wheel will go to the other side of the obstacle from what you're trying to do, and cause a crash or an instant stop, or various things. And so with the tadpole style, you've got constant vision on the widest part of the bike to maneuver it through things. And I think they handle better, generally speaking. I think the tadpole just handles better than the trike style or the Delta style.
Great, thank you both. I appreciate you both being able to, share your insight from your different experiences, and also just speak to how, like you were saying before, different environments may require different types of bikes, depending on what somebody's seeking. So thank you very much. We've had another great question. We've had lots of great questions come in. So we'll try to follow up with as many as we can, but this one is, what is the best way to ship your mountain bike long distances to prevent damage, assuming you're not driving? And then any idea on costs?
Yeah, that's a toughie. Most of my hand cycles don't break down into a small package. And so when I ship stuff to the customer, it usually goes in a box that's roughly 30 inches by 30 inches by 70 inches, which is enormous. And I have deals with freight companies, so I get a hell of a discount, and it still costs me over $400 to ship to Peter. And so shipping right now is, especially because of COVID, has gotten pretty outrageous and really hard to do. International shipping has become almost impossible. I don't have a good solution for you. Putting it in a box and padding it really, really well is what I would recommend. Most shipping companies don't give a crap about what's inside that box. They throw it off the dock. They stab it with the forks of their forklift. I've seen it all. I've had customers call me up and complain that something got dented. And trust me, we take 5 hours to pack up our bikes. We put an enormous amount of packing material on these bikes, and they still get mutilated sometimes. And so just protect your ride. It's an expensive investment. That being said, if you are flying somewhere, you should be able to transport that hand cycle or whatever cycle you have with you, as long as you call the airport ahead of time to make sure that the airplane can accommodate the size, and that the door going into the airplane is large enough and all that stuff. They will transport that hand cycle, and they should do it at zero cost, or at least a minimal amount of cost. So you should look into that, because that'd save you a lot of money and a lot of heartache, I think.
Yeah, and I've found I pretty much either drive or fly. I haven't really done any shipping to get my bike from A to B. Jake's right on with the airlines. When you go to check in, when you go to make your reservation and talk to them, I tell them I have a hand cycle, and it is a pedal, essentially a pedal powered wheelchair. I tell them that those two things, and it's never been an issue. I've never been charged. I've had what I do with the hand cycle before I hand it over to the airlines. I've tried a whole bunch of different ways, and what I've been doing lately with the best luck is I take the brake rotors off, and I foam pad everything and or duct tape it down if it could possibly come off of there. Make sure I get nothing that can easily be removed or get lost. Take the rear derailleur off, because I've had at least twice that I can think of, they bent or broken my derailleur hanger, because that was the derailleur was still on there. But I leave the wheels on, and other than I put some bubble wrap over key things, I make sure I've got my little pad stops in the brake calipers, so if they squeeze the bars, they don't mess up my brakes. And I roll it in that way. And what I've found generally is they see it as what it is rather than a box or a case. And I feel like it gets treated better, that it gets a lot better handling, because they see it as it's a piece of mobility equipment. I've had the baggage guys sometimes at my layover, I've had the baggage guys actually come into the gate just to ask me questions about it, not from a standpoint of loading it, just pure curiosity. And so it's usually a good opportunity to talk about what we do and how we do it. But yeah, I've never paid for my hand cycle or my two-wheel bikes. I pack my e-bike into a regular soft bike case, and I check it as mobility equipment as well. That's never been questioned or challenged or refused. So it's a great way to go.
Wonderful. Thank you for that information. It looks like we have time for just one more question here. And this is actually, Jake, specific to your bikes. It says, I volunteer with an adaptive cycling group, and we provide and maintain bikes for most of our athletes to use. As such, multiple users might be using the same bikes. So with that being said, how adjustable are the fits often with these different bikes, and are some models more universal than others?
Everything that I produce has got a huge amount of adjustment. Bottom line, I don't have several different frame sizes for each one of my hand cycles. Most of my bikes have an incredible amount of adjustment, whether in the legs or the seat back or angles or anything like that. So most of my hand cycles, roughly speaking, can fit anybody from 4'9", 4'10", 5 foot, all the way up to 6'4", typically. Now, will the 6'4" guy like Pete barely fit on it? Yeah, perhaps, but at least they can at least try the piece of adaptive equipment. And if they choose to buy one, then I can do custom stuff in order to accommodate them a little bit better with their own personal piece of equipment.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that. One of the resources I've kind of found in regard to the fit and adjustability is mechanical engineers. I've got my hammerhead right now. The George Mason University has had it for several months, a good bit of the academic year, and I have senior engineering students there working. What they were doing is just Jake and I tossed back and forth a lot of ideas for my sound leg, and also how to attach my stump, how to attach that to the bike. I like to be locked into the bike so that when I roll over, as long as I keep my elbows in and hold on to the bars, there's nothing sticking out to get grabbed. And I find I get a lot better bike handling. But it's a great thing if you there's a program called QL Plus for any veterans, and that this is what they do, is pair you up with engineering students. If you have something that's you need really specific fitting for multiple users, you can go down either road. Jake usually has got a way to modify something. He does a bang up job with the designs and how they're laid out. I've never really had a fit problem. My biggest problem is just my stump changing and trying to keep it locked onto the bike. So there's always a solution to something fit. It can be done.
Awesome. Thank you both. I know we're right on time here. I wish we could get to more questions, but we'll have to wrap up. Thank you so much for both of you for sharing your time and providing your experiences and your expertise. We really appreciate that, and this has been a really valuable learning experience.
If you'll put my, I'm more than happy to share my email, and if there's any questions that didn't get answered and you want to email me about it, I'll be happy to try to answer some of those questions that way.
Sure. And Pete, if you want to plug that in the chat, please feel free. And we can also share that in a follow-up email to all of the attendees here.
Good.
Awesome. Thank you. And to anybody who is tuned in, just as a reminder, this was the first of our 4-part adaptive mountain biking webinar series. We welcome you to tune in to the remaining 3 sessions that will occur every Thursday throughout the month of August at this same time. The following topics will be equipment, trail development, as well as risk management. And as you can see here on the slide, don't forget to show some love to our panelists here on social media. We've got their information listed here, and we'll also share it in the follow-up email. Show some love to Move United as well. You can tag us in any social media posts. So thank you again, and if you have questions specific to this webinar or the series, please do feel free to reach out to me directly, and I'll be happy to answer them. And thank you once again to Pete and Jake for joining us today.
Thanks, Kayla.